Hi, this is Abram Krieger from Friends of Chamber Music of Miami, and I'm glad to have with me clarinetist Alexander Fitterstein and pianist Asiya Korpanova are performing on Tuesday, April 29th at 8 p.m. at the Coral Gables Congregational Church, a special program in that it's the finale of the season, number one. And number two, I'll get right into it. The two of you are playing the two sonatas by Brahms on the program, two incredible works. Tell me a little bit about them.
Really looking forward to playing this program with Asiya. This is, the Brahms sonatas are really the pinnacle of the clarinet repertoire. Brahms was actually ready to retire, and he went to a music festival in the summer and heard this wonderful clarinetist named Richard Mulfeld that inspired him to write again. And he wrote very quickly these clarinet trio, clarinet quintet, and then these two sonatas. The first one still has a lot of energy in it, has a lot of life in it, where I feel the second sonata is somewhat of a farewell, especially the last movement. It's really like an older person looking back at life and kind of looking back at everything that happened. Um, but both are incredible masterpieces, and we're so lucky as clarinetists that Brahms even considered writing sonatas for us, because you can't say that for every major composer. But I think the clarinet at that time gelled very well with Brahms. I think there was something about it that worked for his expression, and what he did in the symphonies with the clarinet and the other woodwinds is really shows a mastery of writing for woodwinds. Um, and of course, the Brahms, being a pianist, wrote such a wonderful piano part in both sonatas. And I'd love to hear what Asiya actually has to say about these sonatas. Not easy, right? The first sonata, especially,
Not
but both.
easy. Yeah, Brahms has a very interesting way of writing. Pianists often get puzzled, especially growing up and gradually acquiring more and more of his works in the repertoire. We wonder, him being a professional pianist and a very good one, his writing doesn't always feel very comfortable and very natural in hands. He thinks orchestrally. It often feels like the music was composed in his head for the orchestra and he transcribed it for piano. This is how it feels. But I would also say that the sense of balance between two instruments, the piano and clarinet, in these two sonatas is better than, let's say, in Rachmaninoff and Strauss cello sonatas. It's so comfortable in the sense that both instruments have so much to play, but they never are stepping on each other, and they coexist in a very intertwined but mutually supportive way. So it is very beautiful, and it's just such a treat to get back to these pieces each time.
What is it like performing with Alex Fitterstein? And what is it like for you as far as performing with a clarinetist in general, as opposed to other instruments?
I had a feeling that is one of the best collaborations in my life when we first met and made music together. It just felt so kind of so natural, and as you mentioned, there was a spontaneity about it, and there was trust to do different things on stage that were slightly varied from what we rehearsed. So it was a very, very important moment for me as a performer, and I'm so happy that we get to play together again. Clarinet as an instrument is such a versatile vessel, I would say, as a sound that at times can sound even like different instruments depending on the register, has extraordinary warmth to it. And I always think about the sense of warmth when I hear clarinet in symphonies as a leading character in different movements. It is such a like a human voice. There's something very human about this instrument. So to me, it stands very different from any other wind instrument in that regard, because it's so personable. in my opinion.
Alex, tell me a little bit about performing on the clarinet, some of the challenges that I mean, you're sitting up there performing or standing, and on the one hand, you're human, you have to breathe. But on the other hand, music
Okay,
is
don't
telling
breathe.
you not to breathe. And you're playing an instrument where you have to maintain airflow and hit a range from the bass, the richest bass, to the highest register. What's that like? What are the things that you need to be conscious of?
That's a great question. I mean, I would say the biggest thing is to get a sense of automation where you're not thinking specifically about actions that you're doing. I mean, I have some kind of things that I try to remind myself to do. For example, inhale deeply, don't start breathing too shallow in a way, especially if you're nervous, or if you're tired, just keep breathing deeply, stay relaxed. But in general, I think the more automated that side of it can be, the better. So then you can engage in emotion, in being in the moment, listening a lot in the performance. I think if you are really thinking too much about the technical side, it takes away from the performance. And that's why you have to put in a lot of hours just getting everything to feel as natural as possible, doing a lot of repetitive things where you don't question the instrument. It really becomes an extension of you. You are not, it's like another organ, or, you just, it fits in your hands and you just play, you imagine things, you listen very intently, and you don't think about, I have to lift my pinky this way or that way, or, I have a high note coming up. Ideally, none of that interferes in you being absolutely in the moment and feeling like you're suspended in time in the performance. And that's the feeling that I try to get, is kind of, like, it's interesting because it's like sometimes you play a Brahms sonata and I can't tell you that exactly 23 minutes have gone by. Sometimes it may feel like it was several hours, or maybe it was, or maybe it was 5 minutes. Like the sense of time completely disappears if you're really in it, in the zone kind of. But so for me, it's all about that. I think the practice is all in service of getting the technical things just out of the way, where you really can take off in the performance, where you're not thinking about, I'm going to put my foot. It's kind of like when you walk around, or you pick up a cup. Let's say you pick up a cup of coffee. You're not thinking, I'm going to pick up this cup right now and I'm going to lift it and I'm going to bring it here. It's something that you do so many times during the day. Everything happens naturally, and that's what I strive for in the performance, where it's just natural. It's like walking. It's like something that I do on a regular basis. I don't want it to feel foreign.
If a performance is one that the listener forgets that they're in the church, they're not looking at their watch, they're not looking at their cell phone, and they totally have lost track whether 10 minutes has gone by in the piece, 20 minutes, maybe even forget what movement they are in. Don't you think that that kind of is a signal that you've been successful in your performance?
It's a little bit of a storytelling aspect of music making. So if you believe your own story, you start telling your story and you invoke everyone in your story, and so people start to follow you. And there's a strong sense for performers about the quality of attention of the audience. We feel when we are being followed. It is such an intense feeling. We feel that. We have that connection. It's non-verbal, it's non-physical, but we feel our audience. So it's the greatest joy when you're playing and you're doing something that is so important to you, and you have an interpretation, you're sharing with people how exactly you hear this music, and they're following you under this specific silence. It's just such a transcendental experience. So it's one of the aspects of music making, that connection with the audience, that is not always, something that is discussed, let's say, in the practice room or in the classroom when we are learning how to make notes on our instruments. We are not yet there, but I think it's very important for everyone who is mastering an instrument to understand that there would be a time of a very almost spiritual connection with the people that came to listen to you perform.
I've had instances where I go to a concert and then I listen to it, and then I go backstage, and sometimes there'll be a reception in the backstage. And literally, I forget who played. I forget whether I was an audience member or a performer. I think it's that experience is so merged for me sometimes, that sometimes I'll be backstage in the green room talking and maybe having a glass of wine. And then I think, okay, well, so where did I put my instrument? And then I think, oh wait, I didn't even play. But you know, this kind of feeling, you know, it's such a special experience listening to music live or playing music live, where the
Yeah.
audience, I think, is such an important part of the whole thing. And I feel as an audience member that I sometimes the experience can be greater than even performing in certain concerts where you really connect with what you're hearing. You're kind of, you know, you're transported, you know, to another world.
It's funny because some people think that the applause, and granted, applause is incredibly important, but in some performances, it's not even hearing a pin drop for
Yes,
minutes.
yes,
And don't you feel at that time like I have them?
yes. It's safe to admit that, okay?
But that's the goal.
The soft endings
Yes.
when the audience does not applaud for, you know, 10 or
Yes,
12 seconds.
yes, yes.
Yes.
You're also performing some music by Weber and also some additional music. Tell me a little bit about that music because I understand that it's quite different in character and for what people could expect when they attend the concert.
Weber is the clarinetist's Rachmaninoff or Chopin because he has written so much for us. We don't have, you know, Weber wrote so many pieces, 2 concertos, concertino, this wonderful grandua that we're going to play, a clarinet quintet, a set of variations. There's so much by Weber, and I personally love his writing. This piece is one of my favorite pieces to play, along with the quintet by Weber, because it's so festive and so, you know, just flowing and imaginative. It's just like, you know, just the beginning itself, the piano plays this big scale up and the clarinet just enters on a higher note and that falls down. It's very imaginative. It's funny at times. There's a sense of humor in it. And it's just so beautiful. The second movement is just so deep and, you know, it's like an aria, you know, it's very operatic. And I love his joy, a sense of joy in his music in the third movements, like in the concertos too. It's just so, you know, joyful and yet dramatic in parts, very dramatic. He's not afraid to really go to the depths of the drama, as if he has a full opera production in front of him, and it's just a clarinet and piano, you know, being so dramatic.
I think it's a fantastic balance between the Grand Duo and the Fantasy Stücke by Schumann, because those pieces, they're like pastel paintings. They are transparent and yet very colorful and allow for really special intimate moments between piano and clarinet and between us as a duo and the audience. And there are so many moments where you feel you're playing something of the utmost sincerity, of the utmost importance, something like a confession almost. So it's very, very personal music. And I think everyone who plays it for the first time kind of inputs this music and associates some of the deepest personal memories with some of the parts in this music because they're so perfect for those.